What's up, gamers? Welcome to another episode of the Meta Update. My name is Joshua Joshi Howard, and of course, we are going to be going over all the fun stuff that we saw over this last weekend. To start off with, it was a pretty small weekend overall. I know in most of the West, I know in the United States, I believe in Canada, and most of Europe, I think it was Mother's Day. So now we get to see who doesn't love their moms. Just kidding. Either way, it is definitely a pretty small weekend, so I wouldn't take away that much from it. We only had 13 singles players and a small number of teams events, so there's just not that much going on. I remember seeing some other stat aggregators saying like there were zero Adeptus Mechanicus players this last weekend, so just it's just a very small weekend in general. We did have a pretty high average elo and median elo, partly because there were a bunch of people going to their first GTs, so they did not have an elo to speak of at all. And I believe there might have been like a French event where like their elos are slowly getting added into the rest of the information. But I wouldn't really, again, what happened this weekend is not the most interesting in the world. Other big thing, it looks like Yarick is going to end up being kind of a bad dream in terms of what he was going to do to the competitive landscape. I only have one list to show you that had Yarick legal, as far as I can tell, and a lot of events that happened last weekend and this weekend. Yarick missed the rules cutoff, so he wasn't really seeing play. And then by the time we get to next weekend, I'm kind of expecting that there's not going to be a lot of Yarick on account of he will have had his nerf already. So I'm not expecting Yarick to really have the same kind of impact on the meta as he was expected to. He is still going to be good. You are still going to be seeing him do well, but probably not to the same like ludicrous levels that we were expecting to see before. We're also going to start seeing like a little bit more like hippogriffs and centaurs and stuff. Of course, you do have to remember like hobby lag does exist. It is way easier to take like an old version of Yorick or just put like a dude on a 32mm base. It's a lot harder to have like an entire vehicle fleet ready to go. So we're gonna start seeing more hippogriffs and centaurs and commissar greys and stuff probably next week. And it'll be hard to say exactly what it will do because I think other than Yarick, basically everything is like good, but not necessarily like faction defining. So I don't really expect it to really move the needle that much on where guard stuff was doing anyway. So go ahead and get into it. It was a small week. I don't have a ton to show you, but before I actually start talking about the list, I want to give a big thanks here to Matt Landry. Uh, Before Matt, it was taking me like 5 or 6 hours to get a lot of these videos done, mostly just because I would have to go through every single event manually in ways that were relatively tough. But Matt has given me a much better tool in order to go through all of the events and has cut that time down by about half. Realistically, it's like instead of 5 to 6 hours, I can spend maybe one. If it's a really long event, it might be up to 3 hours or for like doing everything. But Matt was able to put together a tool to help me parse through PCP much quicker. He does a lot of web dev stuff as well, and he was very responsive. So if you are looking to get any kind of website made for you, if you're looking to get like new marketing stuff, if you're trying to host your own website for blogs or anything like that, I would really recommend hitting up Matt. I'm going to be including a link to the tool that he has made for me and his email down in the description. So big thanks to Matt. If you are interested and are looking for new stuff to do with your any kind of website, make sure you hit him up. He's done great work and he's done it very quickly. So thank you to Matt. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the list. There are only 3 of them this weekend, so I'm going to go ahead and go through them each individually. To start off with, at the first Rurpra War, we have Konstantin Dietz getting second place overall, going 4-1. It is important to note here that it was a small event. There were only 10 players at this event, so not necessarily the biggest or most prestigious thing in the world, but it is still a 4-1. It was still 5 rounds of Warhammer over 2 days. And Constantine has been playing. It's a variant of the very classic 2 Rogaldorns and 2 Vanquishers. It's a Cadian Command Squad, Lord Solar, a San Command Squad, a Rogaldorn Commander, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Krieg, 1 Chimera, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 5 Death Riders, 1 unit of Kazarkin, 3 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of 5 Rattlings, 1 unit of 5 Scions, 2 Lemurous Vanquishers, and a Rogaldorn Battle Tank. So this is pretty normal in terms of playing the 2 Dorns and 2 Vanquisher shell that we're used to saying. Once you have those units, you generally get to make a decision. Do you want to go like add a bunch of 60-point units, or do you want to add more elite infantry and transports? And this one, Constantine is really leaning towards the mini 60-point units. You have The Ratlings, you have one, two, three engineers for 4. The 5 Death Riders makes 5, and then you have the 2 units of 10 Krieg makes 7 units that are more or less 60 points, just running around and doing things. And then the Chimera and the Kazakin, a little bit more dedicated, a good tool to go just hit your opponent's natural or to respond to threats as they appear on the board. So between the Chimera and the Kazakin and the Scions, you have some pretty good tools to go knock off your opponent's natural once or twice. Other than that, not a whole lot of particularly interesting things going on here. It is a very solid list. If you are trying to go 3 and 2 or 4 and 1, and you're trying to get better, this is a good list to help teach you the fundamentals of 40k in general. It will be a bit more successful on Games Workshop terrain than it will be on WTC, but it will work basically anywhere that you play it. Constantine here ended up beating Necrons, Chaos Knights, Votan, a pretty big loss into Space Wolves, and then a small win into Orcs. We've seen Constantine pop up a couple of times so far in these videos, but congratulations on another 4-1 this weekend. Moving on to, I believe this one is in, this was in Germany, I think, and this one, I believe, is in Denmark. We have Kjetil Andre Liknes of Team Norway going to I believe this was a 5-man teams event with 3 wins and 2 draws. It's a very interesting list. So Kjetil was the one player we saw this weekend playing with the new Yark stuff, and it was not the post-nerf, it was the pre-nerf version of Yark. So Kjetil was playing a Castellan, Caden Command Squad, Yark, 2 San Command Squads, 1 Nork Deadog, 1 Ogren Bodyguard, 1 unit of 20 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Krieg, 3 Chimeras, 3 Kazarkin, 3 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of 10 Sans, 1 unit of 5 Sans, and then 2 units of 2 Hippogriffs for a total of 4 of the new baby tanks, all with Meltas and Melta guns. So just a lot of shots of Melta coming out between those cars. It is worth noting that these cars are about as much as a Rogel Thorn. It's 280 altogether here instead of the 290 for a Rogel Thorn Commander. So if you wanted to switch that out, you definitely could. You could, maybe the easiest thing to do is you downgrade a Chimera to a Torox, or you could take Nord Deadog and turn him into an Ogre Bodyguard. There's a couple ways in order to find those points if you want them. Or you could take the 10 signs, turn them to 5 signs, and add like horses or something. There's lots of ways to do it. The interesting thing about this, of course, it is very similar to Doombolt archetype lists that we've seen in the past. You still have the 3 Kazarkin, you still have the 3 Engineers, you still have the Caden Cast on Brick, you still have the Scions. The big change here, of course, is adding in Yark and the Hippogriffs. Kjetil was saying a couple things about this event, though. If you are interested in talking to him, he's, of course, in my Discord. He was saying he was not feeling particularly well for this event, and that's part of why he was struggling a little bit. He was also struggling in general. He says one of his weaknesses as a player is digging out melee opponents and making them interact with him. So definitely something that he maybe could have gotten some bigger wins instead of the 2 draws he ended up getting. But he was also saying that basically all of his opponents were reporting that Yorick was one of the most oppressive data sheets they had ever played against, and everybody involved is glad that he is getting changed from the pre-nerf version. Either way, though, it is something that we probably won't have to deal with for too much longer. Kjetil here got big wins into Tau, Emperor's Children, 2 draws into CSM and Emperor's Children, and then a big win into Eldar. So pretty good overall. Hope he's feeling better. I hope he doesn't have the same kind of issues going forward, but either way, still a good result coming out from Kjetil. The last one I have here to show you is Jack Chapman of 6++. If you are interested, of course, 6++ has a great YouTube channel. They do podcasts. I think it's once a week, and then they do like TTS where they invite a bunch of guests. Sometimes I have been in there a couple of times to play games and just have a good time in general. Jack Chapman at Saffron Slam. Oh, they also have several really good players. Several of the 6++ club are playing for Team England. Over the past several months. Anyway, Jack was playing a very not subtle list at Saffron Slam. He had a Caden Castellan, Caden Command Squad, 1 Ogren Bodyguard, a Rogaldorn Commander with Grand Strategist, 2 additional Rogaldorn Commanders, 1 unit of 20 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Catachan, 1 unit of 10 Krieg, 2 Chimeras, 2 Kazarkin, a Hellhound, and a Lehman Russ Exterminator. That is 3 Rogaldorns and a Lehman Russ and a Hellhound. This is, like I said, not subtle. It is a lot of damage. You're going to have a little bit of trouble if you're not playing very open boards in making your opponent come out and play with you, because you do only have like a couple of units between the Catachan, Krieg, the Chimeras, and the Kazarkin that are very naturally making your opponents come out and play. So you do have to play the Hellhound and the Luminous Exterminator in particular a little bit more aggressively than you might expect in this kind of list. But if you put this on an open board, you're going to have a good time into just about everything. The lethal hits do more damage than the real ones to hit in Grizzle Company, and then you do have the fact that you have the reinforcement stratagem to get that, the 20 Cadians or the Kaiserkin back in order to be a pain for your opponent later on in the game. Jack here ended up going 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw, beating Ultramarines, a big win to Emperor's Children, a loss to Death Watch, which is a little bit surprising to me because of how effective Rogaldorns are at killing Death Watch kill teams. However, if you start losing a couple, like if you start losing a Dorn and you like lose a second one, it can fall apart very quickly when you start losing that damage. So I would not be surprised if a couple lucky Meltas went through and Jack lost a Dorn where he was not expecting to. And then, of course, you can always just, if you just roll low on your shot counts, sometimes the Death Watch does not die. Anyway, he gets a big win into Orcs and a draw here into Necrons, closing out the 3-1-1. That's it. That's the last list I have to show you guys. Like I said, it was a pretty short video overall. Big shout out once again to Matt Landry. If you're interested in getting website development stuff, go ahead and check him out in the description. Um, with that, though, I've had a couple of people asking me about officer training school stuff. I am probably going to wait to do stuff like the Hippogriff and Graves and Yark and all that kind of stuff. We are probably going to be waiting until 11th edition is released. I want to make sure that that content that I make for you guys is relevant long term. Instead of having to make it again in like a month, I want to make sure that it will be good for you guys at least until our codex comes out. So just keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, I have another event coming up this weekend, and then I have another event coming up the weekend after that, and then I'm probably done for the rest of 10th edition. So we will see exactly how that ends up shaking out. For now, though, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and we'll see you guys all next time. Bye bye.